With us today is actor Austin Basis, one of the hardest working actors in Hollywood. He is currently known as Alvin on the award-winning comedy series, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Austin is best known as the breakout comedic star on CW's Beauty and the Beast, as well as a series regular on his role of the CW's Life Unexpected. But Austin's acting resume is so long, it's worth a read on IMDb. Also, diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at a young age, Austin is a strong advocate for the T1D research and is currently a celebrity ambassador for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, for which he is very passionate about. So without further ado, let's welcome actor, ambassador, and comic book writer, Austin Basis. Welcome, Austin.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, what's it been like playing Alvin, the writer of the show on The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
It's been a bit of a dream, a wild ride, a little roller coaster early on, auditioning and kind of the back and forth and up and down. And within a couple days after I got the part, I'm on the ice at Rockefeller Center with a mustache and a comb over, and having fun with the characters on a show that I've watched since the beginning and I'm a huge fan of. So it is definitely a dream, and it kind of brings me full circle to my early days in college doing Neil Simon plays, where I'm a guy from New York, pretty close to Brighton Beach. And one of the first plays I did was Brighton Beach Memoirs. And so that was, 25 years ago at this point, or maybe even more, actually, 1996. Geez. But like being in LA and kind of somewhat disconnected to my New York roots, to get an opportunity to kind of go back to my hometown, live and work on a show like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel was and is still a wild dream come true.
Well, what's it like coming into the final season as a guest star of this extremely popular series? I think it's Amazon Prime's biggest television series to date, versus stepping into a role from the beginning like Beauty and the Beast, for example.
Definitely much more challenging. Whereas like there's nothing written in stone when you're creating a character in a pilot, and honestly, you're getting paid way better. But it's also you're there at the birth of the series. You're co-creating it with the writers and the producers and the director. So stepping in to a series, especially when they're in full stride and full swing in the final season, and they're gaining momentum to cross their own finish line. You're just starting, and you have to, it's like those cartoons where you like trying to catch a moving train, or the old like Buster Keaton things where you're like trying to hitch a ride, and like you just got to keep up until you're running pace with the the tempo, especially in a show like this where they speak really fast. I'm someone that is a little slower, and even though I'm from New York, I've kind of like slipped back into the LA norm of maybe talking a little slower than most of my friends from New York, and just life is a little different. And so stepping into the whirlwind of the world that is Mrs. Maisel is was daunting, intimidating, but very very thrilling to do.
Well, is it like, you had so the series has this incredible synergy, but for you being a guest star coming into season 5, was it like you said it was being daunting? Was it more like coming in there not to mess that up?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm a huge fan of the show, and it's like I've I've been on like I've gotten lucky enough to get cast in shows that I love, like, and I'm huge fans of, and almost for my own sake, but hopefully not for anyone else. I watch it after I'm on it, and it kind of ruins it a little for me. And I also don't want to mess up a good thing, like I don't want to be the reason this is someone's like, oh my God, it's the worst season because of this guy. You know, but I think, this is one of those few times where I don't feel that. I've seen the episodes. I've seen how it all comes out, especially now when all the episodes, one episode away from the finale. That it, I could be proud and confident that I blended with the world, and I know the skill of Amy Sherman Palladino and Dan Palladino and the creators and uh, cast and crew of this show, that if I was cast in it, then they believed that I could do it, and just seeing it from my own eyes, because my level of quality and taste is, I feel, much higher than most people from the outside. So I am my most my biggest critic. So I feel like I had confidence in Amy and Dan and everyone else that uh, they weren't going to let us move on unless they got what they wanted. And sometimes you don't always feel that way. But in this case, I did, and it has proved to be true. And it almost gave me an advantage, because as a fan, I was able to see everything from behind the scenes and see how everything was done, how the sausage was made, and see how good everyone really is, acting, from writing, acting, cinematography, the cameramen, props, costumes. I mean, just unbelievable hair, makeup. It's just top to bottom. It's the best people in the business. And to see that from the inside, and, kind of now as a fan watch it, I could appreciate it that much more, when that's not usually the case.
Well, are you getting a lot of feedback from the fans saying, no, don't end the series, we want to see more seasons?
Well, I am one of those fans that's like, I want to see more. Um, but I know how it ends, and I know that it does end, and so because I was there, so it I feel like it's not ending because of me. Like, I just came on in, like again with the train, the last stop on the train, pulling into the roundhouse, or the final stop, and that was lucky, but also unfortunate as a fan, that I don't get to see more. The only thing I get to see is the stuff I already knew about, but it's so much more fun to see it happen, because to be there at a table read is fun, and hearing everyone do their parts of the episodes, but then we go off and do our own parts, like everyone does their own little scenes, and then kind of like getting lucky enough to kind of see it all come together and enjoy the other scenes as an audience member. It was, I can't say enough about how awesome that was.
Well, I'm wondering how Amazon Prime is going to top this series. It's reached the hearts of America. Everybody loves every character. And I can see why fans would definitely want more, but like you said, you know how it ends, and it ends. And a lot of these series that we're seeing today, they're not lasting 8, 9, or 10 seasons. They're coming in at 2, 3, like this one, 5. So it's just giving us enough. But the great thing is it's very easy to binge watch.
Yeah, and I think that too is the idea that it's a comedy, but it's usually an hour long episode. So you have, I think they said 45 episodes or something over the course of the series. That at any time, any point, I can go back. Anyone can go back. Even while I was on the show, I went back to watch the pilot to, like, check, recalibrate myself, and check my own level of, like changing stuff on the dial, so that when I entered this world, I truly understood, the time period, one, but also the energy level that I was entering. And so yeah, that's the best part about streaming, is that it's always there,
It's
hopefully. And if they don't want to, if they don't want to pay the actors or the writers, as we are in a writer strike right now, then ideally a show like this or Beauty and the Beast or any number of other shows that I've done will find a new outlet because there's a demand. You know, we still live in a capitalist society, so supply and demand, and people need entertainment. People need to find ways to escape the down part of life, or find their pastime in watching shows or their favorite characters. Shows like this really bring joy and entertainment to people, and nostalgia for people who existed and lived during this era, or people that would have loved to live in New York at this time. But it'll always be there, ideally, for people to escape into, and it's truly a world they built.
Yeah, it's literally a world that they built, because when you watch the series, you are literally taken back in time, and I think that's one of the most enjoyable parts. It's not so modern, we get to step back, and I think that's the beauty of television. And but I want you to kind of explain to all of us very quickly here. You work as a celebrity ambassador for the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and you are you have type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, I was diagnosed about 2 weeks before my ninth birthday, and as a 46, going to be 47 this year. I've had it, going on close to 40 years at this point, 35, and so the lifetime that I've had with diabetes, to watch the technology and the improvements that have been made, are a large part due to the efforts of an organization like JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and as a figure in the public eye, being on TV, and being someone that kids could look to. I didn't have that when I was a kid. There wasn't that. I mean, I'm sure there were type 1 diabetics, but there weren't people out there that I could look to, whether an athlete or an artist or singer, actor, even doctors, to say, oh, I could do that. Like, if I have type 1 diabetes, I could do that. And so that's part of, my effort and my inspiration to do this, to kind of inspire others, and to let kids know that this is not, even though it's a lifetime illness, there's no cure, that it's not a life sentence, that they could live a normal life, happily married, and have the career or life they want, especially now with all the technology and advancements that the government and JDRF and scientists have made. All this, all these improvements and technologies, there's no reason why you can't do anything you want. And so that's part of my initiative and my hope with talking to kids and even adults with type 1, that it is actually, I've always looked at it as a strength, or like a secret weapon, and has helped me overcome a lot, and also inspired me to overcome it, so much so that it set me up for success in my current field of choice.
Well, Austin, you are definitely an inspiration to a lot of those that suffer with type 1 diabetes. And I was also impressed. What inspired you to write a comic book about teens with disabilities and chronic illness?
Well, actually, I I grew up, a fan of Superman and Batman, and especially as an actor, the Superman movies, Christopher Reeve, and I was a kid when all these Superman movies came out, and then ultimately the old Batman movies with Michael Keaton, who's reprising his role, coming up. But I in my duties as JDRF ambassador, I had met a kid that had an insulin pump. I have an insulin pump and a continuous glucose monitor, and these are like medical instruments that help you balance your blood sugars and your insulin intake, so that you could live a normal life and have similar numbers to someone without diabetes. And so he's a kid. He was like 8 or 7, and he would tell his friends that like other kids don't know what an insulin pump is, and some adults don't. And so he would tell his friends he was a cyborg. And so I was like, that's an interesting entry point to a hero story of someone with a chronic illness, and in our case that we wrote about, a disability that specific disability or chronic illness could be the source of their superpower. And so from there, a character named Diabetes was created, a kid with diabetes that melds with his insulin pump and continuous glucose monitor and becomes a cyborg, or a teenage cyborg, tween-age cyborg, and hence Diabetes. And then we have other characters that in this mythology we've created about kids with disabilities and chronic illnesses whose perceived weaknesses become their greatest strengths, and in this case, superpowers.
I love that. I think, Marvel, if you're listening, I think there's a new movie coming, and you had the writers right here, Austin Basis. And Austin, I want to thank you for honoring us with your time today, and much success to you after The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have never seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, it is binge-worthy from beginning to end, and it's available right now on Amazon Prime. And again, Austin, thank you so much for joining us. And again, much success to you with all of your efforts and endeavors.
Thank you for having me again.
You're very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, I will be right back with more.
There are 3 common forms of hair loss in women. No matter what type you have, they aren't something you should have to suffer with. Hair Active from Primrose Leaf helps slow down hair loss and provides your hair and your scalp with proper nutrition. Join the thousands of people who are back to combing and brushing their hair again. Hair Active strengthens hair, improves texture, and increases fullness. Call Primrose Leaf today, 844-376-0007. That's 844-376-0007. Or visit us at primroseleaf.com.